In this video, we're going to talk about inequalities. So first, what does it mean, inequalities? It means it's not going to be equal. It's going to be smaller than or greater than, smaller or equal, greater or equal. So there's a part that could be equal, but most of the part is not equal. So there's three different ways, or there's actually four different ways we can write it. We can do it graphically. So if you look on the number line, it's coming from left and it stops at 0, but 0 is not included. So we're going to leave the bracket facing out. And when we write it, we're going to write that x is smaller than 0. That's the inequality. And in Word, what does it mean? You can use the word smaller than or less than, and that's going to work for both. We can also go the other way around, so we can go from 0 and all the way up. So it's going to be 0 facing out because the dot is open, so not included, to plus infinity. We can also write x is greater than 0, or we can also say x is more than 0. Now what happens if the dot is full and it's going to the left? So that means it's going from minus infinity to 0. And 0 is included because our dot is full. We can also say x is smaller than or equal to. So you see at the bottom of the symbol, there's an equal sign that's there. It also means that x is at most 0 or x is 0 or less. There's different way we can say it. Now, if it starts at 0 here and goes to the right, we're going to use from 0 to plus infinity. And we're going to say x is greater than or equal to 0. Or we can say x is at least 0. Or we can say x is 0 or more. Now to practice, let's look at some questions. So if I'm telling you that 6 is less than 21 and I want you to write it using an inequality, how would you write it? You should pause the video and try to write it down in your copybook, and then after you can look on the screen to see if you got it. So 6 is less than 21. We should write it like this. 44 is greater than 18. So I'm going to write it like this. 44 is greater than 18. The trick is that you look at the biggest part of your symbol. So see here, the opening, the big opening that's here, it's pointing to the big number. And over on the 44, see the big opening here, it's pointing to the big number. Now if we're using x, x is greater than, so x is greater than or equal to 23, we would write it like this. X is less than, I'm gonna come over here, x is less than or equal to 109. X is at most equal to x. Sorry, 6 is at most equal to x. So imagine that you have a number line. 6 here is at most equal to x. So that means the x is going to be on the left side. Sorry, I mean, if 6 is at most equal, so 6 is at most equal to x, that means that x has to be greater than your 6. X has a maximum of 15, so that means x has a maximum of 15. X is going to be smaller than. 60 is not less than x. So if it's not less than x, what does it mean? If it's not less, that means it's greater. So 60 is greater than x. So you can write, so you have your 60. That's greater than x. So that means x has to be that way. So take a few seconds to finish, pause the video, and then you can get the answers on the next slide. Now, how do we solve an inequality? So remember, to solve, it means to find the values of the unknown. So you're going to be using the same rule as equations that we did before, but there's an exception, and that's a very important exception. If you multiply or divide by negative number, you need to switch the sign. So if it was smaller, it's going to become greater, or the other way around. Why is that? If you look at the picture here, we're telling you that the opposite of 2 is negative 2, right? So if I'm talking about greater than 2 and I want to do the opposite of that, it's going to be smaller than negative 2, right? So if you have x is greater than 2 and we times by negative 1 on the left, so we're going to have minus x is smaller than negative 2. So if my x here is greater than 2 and we go the other way around, my x is going to, my negative, so this is my x, my negative x is going to be smaller than negative 2. Now, if you look at the example, what do we do with that? There's going to be two ways to do this situation. So I'm going to do one on the left, one on the right. So first, what you can do, you can decide to get rid of your 6 here. So if it's positive 6, we're going to go on the other side and make it negative 6, right? So we're going to have 12 minus 6. So we're going to have minus 3y is greater than 6. Now this is where you have to be careful. If you divide by a negative, you need to switch the sign. So it's going to leave you with y is smaller than negative 2. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The other way, if you have 6 minus 3y is greater than 12, what you can do is you can decide to take this expression, your minus 3y, and send it on the other side. Take your 12 and send it on the other side. So you're going to have 6 minus 12 is greater than 3y. Now you see my 3y is positive. So if I divide by 3 here, and I divide by 3 here, I'm going to have 6 minus 12, which is minus 6. So I'm going to have minus 6 divided by 3 is greater than y. And this minus 6 divided by 3, that's the same as minus 2, is greater than y. So y is smaller than 2 if you look on the left side. It is exactly the same thing as this. Minus 2 is greater than y. To make sure it's the same answer, what you can do, you can think of a number line. I'm going to do it on the top here. Imagine you have a number line. You have negative 2. Y is smaller than negative 2 is going to look like this. And minus 2 is greater than 1. It gives you exactly the same idea.